everybody, welcome back to the Pro Physique Code, and today we have a special guest. This is Brandalyn, who just became the champion of our transformation challenge. I think we called this one the Summer Sculpt. We're always trying to come up with clever names. How are you?
Yeah. Good. Doing good.
Yeah, so very excited that you have like a really nice podcast setup. So this is going to be a great interview.
Yeah, thanks to my husband. Hopefully it's clear.
So let's talk about kind of just some of the big picture stuff. Over the 90 days, what ended up being kind of the change in weight?
Well, I was thinking about that today. I tried to put it behind me. It was in the upper 140s. And I had been struggling with that weight for quite a while. I had always kind of fluctuated around the 130s, and in the last couple of years, I was creeping my way up to like upper 140s. I'm 5'2", so it's not terrible, but I felt uncomfortable, and I was
Sure.
definitely holding on to a lot more body fat than what I liked to see. I had always trained in the gym, and I just felt like I was missing something. And actually, over the 90 days, I think my last weigh-in, like that I submitted, was like 125 or something around there. So it
So
was
maybe
pretty,
20-ish pounds of weight
yeah.
loss in 12 weeks. That's pretty significant.
It was really eye-opening for sure. And I didn't feel like I really saw, like, I worked with Christina, and so she was very good about keeping my mind in the right place, because I had felt discouraged at different times. Like, I wasn't seeing as fast of results as some
Right.
people were in the group. They would say, oh, they lost like 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks or something. And it wasn't until probably like around August that I personally started seeing um, just my body respond really, really fast. So that was exciting.
Yeah, I think the benefit of working with a coach is that when you're doing things on your own, you can get kind of too caught up in the day-to-day changes or not changes and
Mhm.
not realizing that, that's why the data over time matters. And,
Yes.
someone who has a history of coaching, or even, Christina herself has dieted down. She's been my client and competed before. You go through those phases and you know how to, because coaching, a lot of it's the psychology of the person. It's not just like, here's your nutrition, your cardio. It's also being able to address these. The thing that I think put you over the top to win was honestly really little to do with the number on the scale, and everything to do with the complete visual transformation that your physique went through, because you had some um, body fat that it just looked like it was just completely gone at the end of this. There was a little bit of cellulite, and you almost look like a different person. Like, it's
Yeah.
wild, like adding that muscle. So even though you might have lost 20 pounds, I would venture to say you're stronger at the end of this than you were to start, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting because, like, doing the challenge just really made me have to look at what I have been doing all of these years, the way in which I have been doing things. Um, I kind of would joke around, like, my husband and I grew up in the gym. So, like, when we first met when I was 17, we trained together. We kind of went through all of our phases of like hometown gym, Gold's Gym. We would go to the Arnold Classic, like do all of these things. And so fast forward all these years, I felt like I have all this knowledge, like I know how to do these things. Why am I not responding in the way that I thought that I should? So the challenge was super helpful because I had to really evaluate like the ways in which I was training, whether I was doing exercises effectively or not, regardless of what weight I was pushing. And just a whole slew of other things. How much was I actually eating? And come find out, I just was over consuming way more than I realized.
I think that's the thing with accountability, is that we can tell ourselves, well, I ate pretty healthy today. But then you go, but I did have that bag of chips. Oh, and I did eat that extra Pop Tart.
Yeah.
And oh, I did have a soda. So by the end of the day, there's 500 or 600 calories unaccounted for. That's the
Easy.
difference between progressing and not.
Yes, absolutely. It is easy if you aren't really looking at like your diary or your log to just kind of underestimate how much you actually really are consuming.
Yeah. Well, our bodies, this is something, doing this for a long time, I realize our bodies don't want us to change. Our bodies like, you're hungry to stay where you're at. So like you'll go grab something, just because you're used to eating when you're hungry. So there is a lesson to be like, oh, I'm hungry, but I can eat. And then you realize that that's actually like, honestly, when I'm trying to get lean, if I'm not hungry, I think something's wrong. I'm like, I'm not hungry
Mm,
today. Did I do something?
yeah.
You feel guilty about being like satiated. So I think it's a learned skill to deal with a little bit of hunger. Um, and I often fear, so over your history of perhaps trying to lose weight in the past, give me some ideas on things that have you tried, like fasting,
Oh
keto,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
vegan, or was there approaches
Oh
you
yeah.
thought would be the answer?
Yes, all the things. And but to your point of what you were just going to say, I think the opposite is true, is realizing like how many times are you eating when you're not actually hungry? Because that was something that like just habits wise, if you're procrastinating or if you're just feeling a feeling, having to check yourself, which I think is really good about this challenge, because you have to slow down and really think about like what you're doing. But yeah, so I've tried all the things. I never ventured into the vegan route, but I did try in the past, like keto, paleo, whole 30, like just all the things, any trendy thing you could think of. And it's not that they didn't have some sort of like effectiveness. I felt like those things sometimes can be good because you are focusing on like a plan. But at the end of the day, it's still the basics are the basics. And so no matter what you do, there are still things that you can't get around, like a calorie deficit.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing I love about all the things you mentioned are diets. What I consider flexible dieting is not a diet, it's a philosophy
Mhm.
where I can be a flexible dieter and be vegan. I can be a flexible dieter and do fasting. I can do keto, but I will still be required to track my intake, um, and understand the deficit that I'm creating. So I think sometimes diets are designed so that people have to think less and be less accountable, such as fasting. Like, hey, just don't eat for 16 hours a day and you can eat the
Right.
other 8 hours.
Right.
But, research even shows that you just increase the amount of food you eat those 8 hours if you don't eat for 16. So, without accountability, it just starts to change patterns of behavior. It doesn't actually get results.
Yes.
So yeah, that's the fun thing for me. So what was the impetus for you to join this challenge? Was this your first one?
So yeah, I actually was not familiar at all with Pro Physique prior to like June. My husband had been following you and like Lane Norton and all those guys for years, since like bodybuilding.com forum stuff. And it's kind of like a long history, but it was really around like May where I started feeling like, and I was expressing to my husband, like, I feel stuck. Like I'm doing everything that I know to do. I'm seeing very little change. And he had tagged me in one of the like the last challenge that you did with Drea's
Hmm.
transformation. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm missing something. I don't know what it is, but maybe I'm missing something. And I mean, her transformation was incredible. And so it just
Yeah.
sparked an interest in like finding out, okay, is there something that like, I don't know, that I need to be doing that I haven't done? And so that kind of just like sort of avalanched. Like it just one thing led to another. So then I started like just listening to a ton of podcasts, looking at all of your information, looking at just like the clientele that you serve and some of your coaches and stuff like that. And also taking into consideration what was coming down the line for me personally, like in my life. So my husband was getting ready to have a hip replacement surgery. We were finishing up our foster parent licensing like stuff, and there were just a couple of other things that were going to be happening in the summertime. Our niece was getting married she got married in October, but I was kind of looking ahead at like all of the things that were going to be happening in my life. And I'm like, if I don't do something, I'm going to get to October or the end of the year and feel just like life ran me over. And I didn't want that. So that's kind of the thing that sold me on the challenge was like, okay, if I can stay on top of my habits, then I will feel good toward the end of the year, and then I can reevaluate like what my next goal would be after that.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's a female thing or a personality thing, but I think my wife is very similar in that she almost never puts herself first.
Mm.
Um, and I think it's important that we do because it makes everyone around us happier when we're happy, right?
Yeah, when you
When
take care of yourself, it's easier for everybody else for sure. Yeah.
it's something I've learned. I'm 48 now, and I dieted down with the challenge this year. I actually did a show after. I put myself a lot first this year, and what I found is that I'm just in a better mood when I'm around my family and my friends when I've done the things that I want to do.
Mm.
So it makes me a better version of myself versus if I was just missing workouts, missing meals, and just working all the time and not feeling like accomplished each day. But I think that's a behavior that you got to kind of learn at different phases of your life. It's okay to be first. It's okay to be selfish,
Mm.
because if we're not happy, no one around us is going to be happy.
Mm.
And there's nothing like the feeling of like I did this for myself. And just that sense of like waking up. I'm sure you're just, you wake up every day happy now because like you think back where you would have been going into Thanksgiving had you not, you know.
Oh, yeah, it really has changed so much of like the way that I see things, and just realizing just like there are things that had just a wrong idea about or that I was like afraid of that since doing this challenge I've been able to see like okay, I can relax a little bit. Like it's not about the one little mistake or whatever. It's about the consistency and the long haul. And I feel like you want to like I want to set a good example for my kids and for my family, and I want to impress my husband, of course, and being able to take charge of that part of your life and not just like just letting life happen to you or letting the stresses kind of like run you over is really important. I mean, it sets an example.
Yeah, I think that's the big lesson here. So let's talk a little bit about the actual mechanics of starting to finishing, because
Yeah.
obviously if you worked with a coach, that's going to mean you have a lot of data. You didn't just guess, you kind of knew. um, so what were kind of some of the bigger adjustments you made along the way from start to finish as far
Yeah.
as nutrition and cardio?
So the nice thing about having her as the coach or just having a coach in general is they keep track of all of that. So like I didn't have to really worry about like I sent her my stuff, my check-in and my information, but like toward the end she had this huge like compiled data that was just really exciting, and it really kept me like when she would update me on like well here's kind of where you're at, it kept me like in the right lane. Like it kept me motivated because the numbers don't lie. Like your feelings lie and your eyes lie and your brain lies to you, but the numbers and the stuff on paper does not lie. And so that was super helpful. But so when I came to her and we did like kind of like a diet recall, I was in like the upper 2000s. I had some days where I was really inconsistent. So some days I'd have like 300 carbs, and then other days I'd have like 100 carbs. So I was probably on average around 26 to 2,700 calories, I think, which is really a lot for somebody who's 5'2", who hasn't really gone through the different phases in order to get there correctly, who's just kind of like, well.
Well, let me ask you this. If someone had asked you before you tracked, what would you have told them how many calories you were eating?
I would have said probably 2,400 or
Oh,
something like
okay. So you're
that.
not terribly
Yeah.
far off. I was
No.
wondering because you come across people that are like, I don't understand. I'm eating 1,500 calories a day and I'm not
Oh,
losing weight. And I'm like, well, are you actually eating 1,500 calories?
yeah. Are you really? Well, and I had done different, sorts of diet protocols before. So I did know what it felt like to eat like a ridiculously low, like $1,200 1,200 calorie diet.
Yeah.
And that was super miserable. And I think in my mind, because you hear all this stuff online about like, ladies, you need to eat more, you need to eat more, you need to eat more. So I started thinking like, well, I need to eat more. Like I need to eat more to build muscle. And then at some point, just being like all out rebellious, like I should be able to eat this amount. I should be able to eat what I want and look the way they want. And it doesn't work like that. So she had slowly, we worked down to about 1,700 calories, which really felt super like when we did make calorie adjustments, there were like maybe twice where I felt like, ooh, I can feel this for like the first day. Like, you get a little bit of an
Yeah.
adjustment and you're like, okay, I'm a little hungrier. But really, the whole thing just felt very manageable and very doable. So I think, like I said, I ended up around 1,700 calories or something like that. And now I'm reversing back up. So I'm around 19.
What
Um,
about cardio? Do you have a demanding daily schedule where you're on your feet a lot, or are you doing cardio?
so we just did a step goal. I really hate cardio. And so I would do it if she asked me to, because I was at a place where I'm like, I really want to see what happens. Like what is required for me to get to a place where I want to be. And so, and I told her this, if you want me to do a bunch of cardio, I will do it, but I don't really want to. So I ended up, I think my top step goal was like 16,000 steps, which really wasn't hard to do at all, because like I'd push mow my lawn or my neighbor's lawn, and I do like a 20-minute walk in the morning, or, at the gym, do some cardio, or take like extra steps to put away the laundry or whatever. And it was pretty easy to achieve that
So
goal.
say 16,000, that's a lot of steps. I believe that's about 4 miles of walking. So that's
Yeah.
that's that's a good amount. I mean, that requires effort to accomplish that. You can't just accidentally get 6,000 steps. I think, my wife will laugh because her tracker will give her like a round of applause when she hits 10,000 steps. And there's days
Yeah.
when she does that before noon, and
Yeah.
she doesn't do cardio. She just literally just walks the
Yeah.
dog, takes the kids to school, and like
Yeah.
her thing is celebrating. And I'm like, mine's at 2,000.
Yeah.
So,
It is
um,
really funny. But I had a step goal before, just like in my mind, everybody says, oh, 10,000 is a good goal. So I had already kind of come in with a 10,000 step goal. I've been doing that for a really long time. So it was a good increase, but I still could hit that probably without,
right.
being too intentional.
Yeah, I
But
want to
yeah,
put a step tracker on one of my kids. I wonder what they get a day. Probably pretty wild.
I know. And their steps are super short. So you're like, it's got to be a lot.
I mean, they don't. I just think back to my youth. It's kind of a theme that a theory I've been thinking about for many years, is that we use this term metabolism to explain why we gain weight when we get older.
Mm.
And we'll say things like, oh, when I was young, I had a really good metabolism. And I'll be like, oh, cool. Well, describe your day when you were young. Well, I would walk to school. I would
Mhm.
walk around campus all day. I would go to baseball practice. I would come home, play basketball with my friends, and go to bed. So
Yeah.
did you have a good metabolism, or did you just never stop moving?
Right, you moved all the time.
Like if
Yeah.
you take an adult that's 40 years old and you put them in a high school kid's schedule again, I
Mhm.
bet you they have a good metabolism. I don't
Yeah.
think the metabolism is the problem. I think it's, I want to make a shirt that says fat isn't stubborn, people are. Because everyone's like, oh, I have this stubborn fat. I'm like, I don't, yeah, we're stubborn. The fat doesn't care. Like
Mhm. Yeah,
it's not
right.
grumpy.
Yes, yeah. I think that's true too. I've heard different theories on that. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, even people who are more fidgety, like bouncing their knee or moving around like that.
Oh, if I literally just did a YouTube video on a study that came out called the fidget factor, where they overfed people that worked in the same office. So they
Mhm.
worked in the same office, the same environment, they had the same schedule. They overfed them, and a certain group of people gained body fat. The other group of people did not. And what they found is the people that didn't gain body fat, when they overfed them, their energy expenditure increased. They would just bob
Wow.
their leg more. They would get up from their desk and walk around more. So there is a genetic component to going, okay, some people are more prone to weight gain, but some people are I would say I am very high in the fidget factor.
Mhm.
Growing up, I don't sit still. So like my friends, we would play basketball and they would take a break between games. I would stay on the court and shoot and run around until the next game started out. And I didn't think of it at the time, but looking back now, I think, yeah, I could never sit still. So
Yeah.
because you're looking for reasons why we get unhappy with our physique, right? And all the times in my life that I think I was the unhappiest was the times I was, the most sedentary, probably out drinking the most, not getting up early, just, and listen, I enjoyed those times immensely. I don't regret them.
Mhm.
But there's, days you look in the mirror and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
So it's cool that you got to see kind of all this unfold. So how's your husband's hip? Is it better?
It is. He's always taken care of his body and he's always trained, and that was a huge reason why he healed so fast. And he knows how to do therapy, and so his recovery was super quick
Okay.
and really amazing. So yeah, it's so much better. He had been dealing with just some major issues for years. So it was long overdue, we feel like, but yeah, he's so glad that he had it done.
Yeah. So now that the challenge is over, what's the transformation been like for you as far as has there been weight gain, anything uncomfortable, or have you just been transitioning smoothly?
Well, yeah, the scale has gone up a little bit, but I'm still in the 120s, so I'm happy about that. I'm continuing to work with Christina because I kind of went back and forth, like, do I really need to? I'm not sure. And right before the challenge ended, we had a bit of like, we had two foster children placed with us for a short period of time, and so that kind of like just really revealed that like I still need to be held accountable through this next transition so that I can go into my next phase, which would be planning right around when your next challenge starts, another fat loss phase at a really good spot, because I had listened to so much like so many podcast shows that you guys have done about like just post show weight gain that competitors deal with, and
Yep.
people who they get to what seems like a finish line and then they just do not back out of it in the right way, and how it can just put you at such a bad spot. And I really didn't want to do that. So we've been doing really good. I've had a couple check-ins and she's really happy with my progress. So I'm just gonna keep doing it.
So what I notice about successful people, there's a few things. The biggest one is usually learning how to plan ahead. So
Mhm.
prior to this challenge and then during the challenge, did your habits or routine around nutrition change?
Yeah, yeah. One of the biggest things that changed for me, and it's a really a life-saving tip, is that and something like my husband did, and then also you guys were like echoing this on your podcast, is to have like just staple check off the box meals that you like. So like every day I would have a couple of different meals that I'm like, I like this, and I knew if I had A, B, and C, I'd be at a good place for dinner time. So like that was very different from before, because I was kind of like willy-nilly tracking my stuff as I'd go throughout the day. And it's just much easier to say, okay, I'm gonna eat my chicken, rice, avocado, and salsa and corn, and I know it's this much, and keep it real simple. Like, there's all these recipes out there and just really cool Instagram pages where they're like, this is the macro friendly donuts, and here's the protein cake here's a 16 ingredients, and it's like, those are cool, but you don't want to overcomplicate it because you do get decision fatigue pretty quickly.
Oh, I mean, yeah, my like the thing that the first time I ever dieted, and that's really kind of what helped me create this challenge was like I just remember thinking like I can't every day be thinking about my food. So I would
Yeah.
literally, on Sundays cook like a couple pounds of fish, potatoes, chicken, put it in the fridge, and then just be able to grab and go. And I remember thinking like it's just makes your life so easy. It honestly made me think of like who was the famous CEO? I think the guy that was the CEO of Apple. Um
Steve
he,
Jobs.
Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every day.
Oh,
Just so he
really?
Yeah, he literally wore jeans and a polo
Hey.
every day because it's just like decision fatigue, right?
Yeah.
He basically took it to the next extreme. Like, I don't want to make any decisions that I don't have to make. So he just
Yeah.
wore the same thing, ate the same thing, like so his thought processes were around being creative and doing the work that he had to do there. Whereas, with food fatigue, you don't realize it, but 2, 3, 4 times a day, how many times do we argue with our spouses about what's for dinner? Well, I don't want that. Like I don't I didn't have to have that conversation because we knew, my wife and I would discuss like what we were going to eat for the week. So we knew our dinners.
Yeah.
And it takes that away. And then you don't have to worry about the stress. Cause I think most people overeat at the end of the day.
Hmm.
When stress is higher, hunger is higher. And if you don't have something at your fingertips, it's very easy to pull into the drive-through, do the Uber Eats for the pizza or whatever it is. And I think, we all just think I'll just figure it out tomorrow.
Hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So good on you. So I'm sure you've continued those habits as this challenge has ended.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because I've always been a person that can just eat the same thing without getting too tired of it. I could do it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And there are some things that I'm like, man, I could just eat this forever. It's so good. I love the combination of foods and flavors and stuff like that. And I'm like, who cares? Like it doesn't have to be exciting. And as long as I like it, that's all that matters.
Yeah. And I think that's I think when I talk to people, you'll inevitably get asked by your neighbors, your friends, like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? What is so different? And I get this a lot. Oh, I could never have your discipline. And I'm like, honestly, it's not discipline because it actually feels like less discipline. It feels like once you plan it ahead, you don't have to think at all. So it's
Yeah,
very freeing.
and it's very simple, like at the end of the day. So when you're talking about just tracking macros and sticking to those numbers, like there's no fluff, there's no like excitement. There's not,
Yeah.
it's very simple. And I think that's sometimes what surprises people is like, well, what do you mean? It's just
Yeah.
like, it's just those things.
Yeah.
Um,
They want to know like the supplement or the
right.
red light routine or the sauna. What are you doing differently? And that
Right.
it's like accountability is supersedes all of that.
Absolutely. Yes.
So yeah, that's why I love the challenge, for the aspect of it's not easy work. Like you have to do the work. There's going to be days where you're hungry and you're tired and these things
Mhm.
to lose body fat, but the process is quite simple. It's
Yes.
just that we complicate it. And I mean,
Yes.
especially nowadays with all the information that's out there, there's so, like you said, you just constantly are hearing like, you'll hear 2 days, two different things. You're not eating enough, you're eating too much.
Right.
You're like, wow, oh, you're eating a lot of fat, you're not eating enough carbs, and so I think
Yeah.
that's just going to continue. And that's the one thing, like, I've made so many YouTube videos and every now and then I'll get a comment like, I feel like you've been making the same video for 10 years. And I'm like, I have. The message hasn't changed. It's
Right.
simple.
It's just, yeah, it's fundamental things that, you can't get around. Um,
The audience can outgrow me. I'm fine with that. I'm not trying to reinvent myself because I'm not trying to refigure things out. I figured it out. It's simple. But, once you have these tools, you know how to proceed for the rest of your life. If you ever go, I need to lose a few pounds, okay, I got to start tracking. I got to figure out where I'm at. I got to match my steps. It's a formula that you can apply to yourself that I don't think a lot of people are ready to hear that.
no, I don't think so either because it just is not flashy. Like
Right.
it just really isn't. And the nice thing about having like a coach and that accountability piece is like, I could have asked a friend, I could have asked my husband, I could have asked, anybody around to say, hey, could you keep me accountable? Like, can I check in with you? But it's just not the same because you really need somebody who um just doesn't really isn't afraid to just call you out or like. And Christina was always so sweet, and the plan was easy enough for me to manage. I mean, it was a stretch in a lot of ways because I had to just reevaluate like my habits and plan ahead and all those things. But I knew that like she is a certain level that like I'm not going to call or I'm not going to report into her and say, hey, I just didn't get it done because
Right.
I didn't want that. But like it's easy to do that with a friend or your husband or just make excuses or make it seem like, well, I just had this thing going on or whatever. When you work with a coach that's outside of your realm and their goal is to just keep you accountable, like it just changes things. It's a very different level of accountability. And I told her so many times, like, I am so thankful that I made the choice to work with her because I know I would have just justified my like excuses for not staying on track had I just decided to do it on my own.
Yeah, I mean, it also helps when you have a coach that has 5 kids. I think she has 5 or 4. I know she's very busy with kids. I've met her family. You're not going to be able to tell her like, oh, I just didn't have time. She's
Right.
going to be like, really?
Yeah, she's doing it. And the thing that I love about her is that like even on her Instagram page, she has just real life stuff intertwined with the fitness stuff. And she bakes the cakes and she goes to the hours of long cheer meetings, and she's just a normal woman who fits all of her fitness stuff right in. And that was the reason why I ended up picking her, because I had looked through a bunch of different coaches and I thought she's the one that I feel like I can most relate to, and that she could most relate to me. And it was such a good fit because every time I would email her something, she just got it. Like she just understood. And she would say back to me, I'm sure you're probably feeling like this. And you're probably feeling like this. And I'd be like, oh, thank you, because you do totally get it without me having to really say a lot. So it was a really good fit.
Yeah, that's one of the blessings of, having Pro Physique for as long as we have. What started out as just me as a coach, and we've been able to incorporate coaches in all walks of life. Based on where someone's coming from, we can meet them where they're at. You don't have to want to win the Bikini Olympia to be a client of Pro Physique. You can literally just want to lose a few pounds or put on some muscle. And so, I'm very grateful for Christina because I know how excited she was for you.
Oh,
Like that.
she's so great.
Very excited. She was messaging me today to make sure I was ready for the podcast. She wanted
Oh,
us to have a great podcast. So she's all heart when it comes to this stuff. So let's talk about what's next for you, because you've
yeah.
made this big change. There can be a letdown. There's this, post-show blues. I know you didn't do a competition, but there is a finish line. You won. What's keeping you excited now?
Well, I am excited because in February, my husband and I will be married for 20 years. So we'll be celebrating
Wow,
our
that's
anniversary. Yeah,
amazing.
we're really excited. And that's one of the things we're actually doing. We're planning a trip for that. So that money will be put to good use. And then I'll be turning 40 in February as well. So I'm feeling really excited to just nail the reverse part of it and continue to get stronger in the gym. Um, so that when we go into those like milestones in February, I just feel really good. Like I feel so much better about myself and my strength and my capabilities than I have in the last probably 5 or 6 years. So that it's just exciting to see that like I'm not
You
broken,
you got married at 19?
I was 20. So I turned 20 and then we got married the next day.
Wow, you couldn't even drink alcohol at your wedding.
No, and we didn't. We were married at a Baptist church, and so there was no drinking, no dancing. It
Oh,
was
wow.
very, very
Wait,
traditional. Yeah.
did you get married in the Footloose town?
You know, that's a good question.
Was
And I
Kevin
do love
Bacon
that
there?
movie. I watched that movie. I watched that movie so much as a kid. Yeah. Maybe a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to say, were you planning your wedding in high school? Because that's pretty young.
I was, yeah. We were engaged twice. And the first time we were engaged, I was a senior in high school. Yeah, we were young.
Wow.
Yeah.
You don't hear that very much anymore.
No, it's a sweet story.
Well, congrats on 20 years. I think my wife and I just passed 10, so we're we're blessed, and it's, it's a testament for you to be so young, and obviously you've changed so much over the years, but you guys have changed together. That's really cool.
Yeah, yes. Fitness has been such a big part of that. I mean, it's something we've always loved and enjoyed together, and really just such a foundational part of our
It'll be cool. Like you said, you've gone to the Arnold before, so if you go to the Arnold this year, let
oh
me
yeah.
know. We'll definitely
Oh,
have a
okay.
booth, and we'll be, I'd love to meet you guys in person.
We haven't been in years. We have often talked about it and then kind of like, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, maybe we will this year. That
I
would be
mean,
cool.
Columbus in March is not, it's very hit or miss. I've been years when it was like
Yeah.
70 degrees and years when it was -4. So,
Well, and I'm in Michigan, so
oh,
yeah,
so
I
you're
get
used
it.
to it.
It's like you never know what you're gonna get. We've had blizzard.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to say, share, thoughts you want to give on the journey?
I'm just amazed. Like, I am so thankful for you guys putting this on and just giving a voice to like just the normal people of the world who are living normal lives and who just want to improve. And I love I loved the like the Facebook group and the camaraderie and just the like just the cheering on and the inspiration that you see from people of all ages and
Yeah.
all walks of life, you know, and that is just really neat to see because like you do have a lot of competitors that you do um, coach and that you see, but you have this whole group of like lifestyle people that you somehow intertwine together, and it's just really, really neat and very different. And so I'm just really blown away. I'm thankful, and I just look at kind of like how everything played out, and I'm just still wowed. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I did that. Look at some of the pictures and I'm like, oh my goodness, like that was me before, and this is the after, and I'm just still amazed, so
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, the competition um clients has been like a work of a decade or more, because you don't start out coaching competitors, you start out just coaching people that want help. And then as that evolved, I found I got more excited about coaching competitors, but it didn't change my passion for just helping people. So the business has just continued to evolve around that concept. Like, if you, whether or not you want to compete, we want to help you. And the thing I love about a transformation like yours is it wasn't just like 90 days of water fasting, you lost all this muscle, and even though the pictures look great, you're a mess. No, like, you added muscle, you
Mhm.
completely changed your body composition, you still sound great, you have a great relationship with food, exercise, cardio, yourself. These are real transformations. And so, it's not maybe as sexy as like a TV show with Biggest Loser where they lose 100 pounds in 30 days or
Right.
whatever it was, that. But you hear the horror stories of the actual what
Yes.
happens after those shows. This to me is actual changing of someone's life, and so you're going to be a great example. Just like you learned from our last champion, you are now going to be, when this content comes out and people can see your pictures, they're going to be like, wow, look, it's not like you need to do a bodybuilding show to completely
No.
transform who you are. But if you ever wanted to do one, hey, we're here. All right.
Yeah, no, I hope it's an encouragement to people, and just like a real example that it does not have to be scary. It doesn't have to be super extreme. Like, you can still enjoy your life
Yeah.
and make changes, and it's a process. Like, that is one of the things that I really, really understood this time, versus some of the other times that I've done different things, is that it's a process, and there are different phases that your body really needs to go through. And so, even though we always feel like we want results now and we want it faster, it really just isn't like that. So which is good because we can relax and just sort of enjoy the ride, I feel like, and the pressure kind of comes off when you feel like, okay, I can have a piece of Halloween candy. I can have, a piece of pie at Thanksgiving, and it's okay because it's not going to wreck everything. And I'm not a failure, So it's really great, and I hope it's a big encouragement to people.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll have you involved in the next challenge if you want to get in that Facebook group and
Yeah,
share your
absolutely.
story and encourage others. I really like that, because we've only been doing it for a couple of years. This year, next year coming up, we're going to have our first in-person event in North Carolina.
That's awesome.
So maybe we could invite you to that. And I
Yeah.
think these are kind of the things that we're trying to evolve. And because the community to me is so big.
Hmm.
um like you said, the Facebook group has so much value. We might not have someone in our town, in our gym, in our life that has the same goals as us, but there's definitely somebody on the internet in the world that we can. So
Hmm.
that's the thing I love about these groups, is that there's so much positivity in there, and they're sharing recipes and successes and failures. And I think that helps everybody. The rising tide floats all ships type philosophy. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for being on the Pro Physique Code today.
Thank
um
you.
and
This is
is
great.
Do you have any social medias that you want to share, or are you just,
I do, but I'm not like, it's pretty private because I've got, my family and kids and stuff on
yeah,
there.
so we'll just leave that off. I don't want a bunch of people messaging you about,
Yeah. But
things.
I'll be in the group, like I'm in the group, and I have plans to be in the next one. I've told a couple friends about it who are like, oh, I want to do something like that. So it'd
I
be
think
nice.
honestly, them seeing you, they're going to be more inclined to be like, okay, it worked for her. And then you can also be there to support them. So that's awesome.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, it was great speaking to you, Brandalyn. Congratulations on a great transformation. Have a wonderful
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Thanks for having me on. You too.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye bye.